04:00 hours, Eastern Mediterranean. The night was calm. Then the alarms shattered the silence. Radar screens glowed red. Multiple missiles, fast, low, and deadly, were heading straight for the USS Harry S. Truman. Sailors rushed to battle stations. Orders echoed through steel corridors. In less than 1 minute, the U.S. Navy's mightiest warship faced its greatest test in years. A storm of fire was coming. What followed would shake the region and stun the world. Stay till the end to see how the Navy's response rewrote the rules of modern warfare. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss what happens when America fights back. The USS Harry S. Truman is not just a ship. It's a floating city of steel and power, over 1,000 feet long, carrying more than 5,000 sailors and equipped with more aircraft than many nations own. As part of the U.S. Navy's Carrier Strike Group 8, it stands as both shield and sword. Its mission is simple: Project American Strength anywhere on Earth. In early spring, the Truman was on patrol in the Eastern Mediterranean. The region was tense. Reports of coastal missile tests and drone launches from hostile territories were rising. Intelligence briefings warned of potential unidentified threats near U.S. and NATO operations. Still, patrols continued. That's what the Navy does. Stay visible, stay ready. Each day aboard was routine but relentless. Pilots ran training flights. Deck crews managed aircraft. Engineers maintained the twin nuclear reactors powering the massive carrier. The ship was always awake, day and night. Every minute, radar operators scanned the horizon. Every watch stood alert. The Truman was not alone. It was protected by a carrier strike group, a powerful team built for survival. Surrounding it were several warships, the guided missile cruiser USS Normandy, and destroyers like the USS Gravely and USS Bulkley. Together they formed a moving fortress. Each vessel carried the Aegis combat system, the Navy's integrated shield against air, surface, and underwater threats. But even with that power, the ocean gives no guarantees. At that time, global politics were on edge. A neighboring power had been accused of testing new coastal anti-ship missiles near contested waters. U.S. reconnaissance satellites had spotted launch pads being built along a hostile coastline. There was tension in every command briefing, though no one knew when or if those weapons would be used. For days, the Truman's intelligence division monitored electronic chatter. Drones from the strike group's destroyers scanned coastlines. Nothing unusual appeared. No warning lights. Just radio silence, the kind that feels heavier than noise. Then came the night of the 4th. At 03:45 hours, most of the crew were asleep or at low alert. Night watch crews monitored radar and communications, as they always did. The sea was calm, and visibility was perfect. The carrier group moved at cruising speed, maintaining formation. To anyone looking from the outside, it was just another night patrol. But deep inside the Combat Information Center, radar operators noticed something odd. Faint electronic signatures, far to the east. They were moving fast. Very fast. The technician checked twice, then a third time. He called his supervisor. Within seconds, senior officers were called to the bridge. At 03:57 hours, the first radar warning sounded. Multiple objects, high speed, low altitude, closing distance. The message flashed to every escort ship in the formation. Vampires inbound. That's Navy code for incoming enemy missiles. In a heartbeat, calm turned into combat. Every sailor on board had drilled for this moment, but real alerts sound different. The tone is deeper, sharper, more urgent. The ship's lights dimmed to battle readiness. Watertight doors sealed. Weapons systems came online. The carrier group shifted formation, with destroyers moving forward to intercept. The captain of the Truman gave one command. General quarters. All hands man your battle stations. The order spread through the ship like a current. Within 90 seconds, every station was manned. The air defense teams tracked the incoming targets. The radar operators called out ranges. 120 miles, 100 miles, 80 miles. Outside, the sea looked quiet. Inside, every heartbeat counted. The missiles were coming from the east, likely from coastal batteries hidden in mountain ranges. Their flight path was low to the water, designed to avoid radar detection. It was a classic saturation attack, multiple missiles launched to overwhelm defenses. The crew didn't know how many there were yet, only that they were closing fast. The Truman's escorts had seconds to respond. Missiles like these can travel at nearly 600 miles per hour. That meant less than 10 minutes from detection to impact. At 04 hours exactly, the radar confirmed it, at least 12 inbound missiles. The largest U.S. warship in the region was under attack, and the next few minutes would decide everything. 4 hours. Eastern Mediterranean. The first warning came through the bridge. 12 inbound, bearing 085, range 70 miles. The voice was calm, but everyone knew what that meant. The USS Harry S. Truman and her entire strike group were in the middle of a missile attack, the first real one many of these sailors had ever faced. Inside the Combat Information Center, green radar screens glowed brighter than ever. The Aegis systems aboard the destroyers USS Gravely and USS Bulkley locked onto the incoming targets. Their job was to form the first shield, intercept and destroy before any missile reached the carrier. At 04:02 hours, the destroyers fired. Vertical launch cells opened. SM-2 interceptors, long, sleek defensive missiles, roared into the sky. Their guidance systems locked onto the attackers. Seconds later, the night sky lit up with flashes of light. "Intercept 1! Splash!" a technician shouted. One hostile missile destroyed mid-air, 11 to go. But the attackers were smart. They came in waves, low-altitude, sea-skimming flight paths designed to slip under radar coverage. Some missiles even weaved and changed direction mid-flight, electronic trickery meant to confuse the defense grid. At 04:03, the second wave appeared. 8 more missiles, smaller but faster, closing from a new direction. The destroyers shifted fire. The Aegis system tracked both groups at once. It calculated intercept courses in milliseconds, launching more SM-2 and ESSM missiles. Each cost nearly $2 million. But at this point, money didn't matter. Only survival did. Inside the Truman, alarms echoed. Damage control teams sealed hatches. Flight crews rushed to secure aircraft on the deck. Pilots scrambled to their jets, ready in case they were ordered to strike back. Then came a call no one wanted to hear. 2 missiles broke through the first defense line. They were too close for long-range intercepts. The last line of defense kicked in. The close-in weapon systems known as CIWS, pronounced Sea-Whiz. These are radar-guided Gatling guns that fire 20mm rounds at 4,500 rounds per minute, a wall of metal meant to tear incoming missiles apart. At 04:04, the first CIWS opened fire. The sound was deafening. A steady, ripping roar. A stream of red tracers arced across the black sky. One missile exploded just a mile from the carrier. The shockwave rolled over the deck. But there was still one left. Radar screens showed it moving fast, less than 20 seconds from impact. The crew braced. Every second felt like an hour. The missile screamed toward the ship, closing the distance. Then, at the very last moment, the second CIWS locked on and opened fire. A burst of fire, a flash. The radar blip vanished. Cheers erupted across the control center. Every sailor in the CIC let out a breath they didn't realize they were holding. The captain gave the order. "Maintain battle readiness. Track for secondary launches." But this wasn't over. At 04:06, more signatures appeared. Drones. Several of them flying toward the formation. Smaller targets, possibly armed with explosives or cameras. The Navy's electronic warfare teams responded instantly. They fired bursts of electromagnetic interference, jamming signals that cut drone communications mid-air. One by one, the drones dropped from the sky. In less than 10 minutes, the attack had come and gone. It was brutal, fast, and unexpected. No missile hit the Truman, no sailor was hurt. The carrier's air defenses had held firm, but it wasn't luck. It was training. It was precision. It was a system that worked exactly as designed. The crew didn't celebrate for long. Commanders needed answers. Satellite feeds were analyzed. Recon planes were launched. Every radar trace was reviewed. Within minutes, analysts traced the missile launches to a stretch of hostile coastline 110 miles away. The U.S. Navy had been attacked. There was no longer any doubt. And within hours, Washington would give the green light for a response that would shake the world. To understand what happened that night, you need to know how the U.S. Navy fights, not just with firepower, but with systems that think faster than humans can react. At the heart of the defense was the Aegis combat system. Think of it as the brain of the entire strike group. It connects every ship, the destroyers, the cruiser, and even the carrier, into one single defensive network. When radar on one ship spots an incoming missile, every vessel sees it instantly. It's a shared shield, built to track hundreds of threats at once. When the first missiles were detected, Aegis calculated their flight paths, speeds, and possible impact points within seconds. It identified which ones posed the biggest danger, then assigned the right weapons to take them out. The system doesn't panic. It prioritizes, targets, and fires, all in real time. The destroyers USS Gravely and USS Bulkley were the first to engage. Both ships are Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, armed with 96 vertical launch cells. Each cell can fire a range of missiles, defensive or offensive. During the attack, they used SM-2 Standard missiles and ESSMs, or Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles. The SM-2 is the Navy S long arm. It can hit targets over 90 miles away and travel at speeds above Mach 3. The ESSM covers shorter ranges but reacts faster, ideal for low sea-skimming missiles. Together, they form the first defensive layer, long-range and mid-range protection. If any missiles survive that, the Navy relies on its final line of defense, the CIWS or Close-In Weapon System. These are 20-millimeter Gatling guns mounted around the ship's perimeter. They can spin and lock onto a target in less than 2 seconds, firing thousands of rounds every minute. The sound they make, a harsh, ripping growl, is the last thing any incoming missile ever hears. Each defensive layer buys time for the next one. The entire process, from detection to interception, happens in under a minute. That speed is what saved the Harry S. Truman that morning. But weapons alone aren't enough. The crew's training is what makes the technology work. Every sailor on the Truman and her escorts trains for this scenario repeatedly. They run live fire drills, radar simulations, and full alert exercises. They learn to react without hesitation. Every second matters. Meanwhile, electronic warfare officers jam the enemy's radar and targeting systems. By sending bursts of electromagnetic energy, they confused the missile guidance and broke communication between drones and their controllers. It's invisible combat, fought not with bullets, but with signals. Above the water, the Truman's E-2D Hawkeye aircraft, a flying radar platform, began scanning for more launches. The Hawkeye can track threats hundreds of miles away and feed that data directly into Aegis. That's how the Navy builds what's called situational awareness. Everyone, from pilots to radar operators, sees the same picture. Within half an hour, U.S. satellites and reconnaissance planes confirmed the source of the attack. The missiles had come from 3 coastal batteries operated by a hostile faction in the region. Their launchers were hidden inside mobile trucks that could move and fire within minutes. That's when the second part of the operation began. Retaliation. The Truman's air wing was already on standby. FA-18 Super Hornets, armed with precision-guided bombs, were fueled and loaded. On the destroyers, Tomahawk cruise missiles were programmed with exact coordinates. A Tomahawk can travel more than 900 miles at nearly 550 miles per hour. It flies low, hugging the terrain, guided by GPS and onboard sensors. It's designed to strike with pinpoint accuracy, within a few feet of its target. At 0830 hours, just over 4 hours after the first missile attack, the orders came through. Engage the identified launch sites. From the decks of the destroyers, vertical launch cells opened once again. But this time, the missiles were heading east. Dozens of Tomahawks lifted off, slicing through the sky. The Truman launched its aircraft seconds later. The retaliation had begun. What followed would prove that the U.S. Navy's reach was not just defensive, it was absolute. At 0915 hours, the first Tomahawks reached their targets. Each missile hit with surgical precision. The first impact destroyed a coastal radar site used to track U.S. warships. Seconds later, 2 more missiles struck mobile launch vehicles hidden under camouflaged nets. Explosions rippled across the shoreline. Secondary blasts showed that ammunition and fuel stores were burning. The FA-18 Super Hornets from the Truman arrived moments later. Flying low and fast, they released GPS-guided bombs that struck remaining command posts and support trucks. Every hit was confirmed by onboard sensors and relayed to command. Within 25 minutes, all 3 launch zones had been wiped off the map. By 10 hours, the area that had fired on the Truman was silent. No radar pings, no launches, nothing left to threaten the fleet. The Navy's response was quick, clean, and overwhelming. Not one civilian area was touched. Every strike had been verified against satellite data to avoid collateral damage. That precision mattered. The goal was deterrence, not destruction. In Washington, Pentagon briefings were held behind closed doors. Publicly, the statement was short and direct. U.S. forces in international waters came under missile fire. The attack failed. Appropriate defensive and proportional responses were taken. All U.S. personnel are safe. Across the world, that message sent a chill. Allies praised the Navy's speed and discipline. Adversaries studied it carefully. Everyone understood the same thing. The U.S. Navy's defensive systems were unbreakable, and its retaliation unstoppable. For the sailors aboard the Truman, the mood was mixed. Relief, pride, and a quiet sense of respect for the power they had just witnessed. Many had gone from deep sleep to full combat in under a minute. They had faced 12 incoming missiles and survived without a scratch. Damage control teams inspected every section of the ship. No hits. Only minor shockwave effects from intercepted missiles. Planes resumed flight operations by afternoon. The Truman's engines stayed steady. The mission continued. At 16 hours, a formal message was transmitted to Central Command. Carrier Strike Group 8, operational. No losses, threat eliminated. The attack became a lesson in modern warfare, how fast conflicts can start and how quickly technology and discipline can decide the outcome. In less than 6 hours, an unprovoked missile assault had turned into a demonstration of precision, coordination, and control. But for those aboard the Truman, it wasn't just about winning a fight. It was about proving what the Navy trains for every single day: readiness, the ability to move from peace to war and back again without losing focus. And that calm, calculated power is what makes the U.S. Navy feared and respected across every ocean on Earth. The sea returned to silence. The morning sun broke over calm waters, glinting off the carrier's deck as if nothing had happened. But for the crew of the USS Harry S. Truman, that day would never be forgotten. They had lived through one of the most intense few hours of their lives, a sudden, unprovoked missile storm at 4 a.m., and they had walked away stronger. It was a reminder that in modern warfare, danger no longer announces itself. There are no warning shots, no time to prepare. Threats now come in seconds, from beyond the horizon, hidden in the static of radar screens. The difference between survival and destruction lies in one thing: readiness. The Truman's defense that morning was not luck. It was decades of training, discipline, and unity. Every sailor, every system, every command worked as one. It showed the true meaning of deterrence, strength that prevents war by proving you are ready for it. Around the world, nations watched. Analysts called it the 6-hour war. Others called it the Truman test. Whatever the name, the message was clear. America as carrier strike groups are not just floating airfields. They are shields of steel that guard every sea lane, every trade route, and every ally that depends on them. For the men and women aboard, the experience changed something inside them. They learned how quickly calm can turn into chaos. They learned what it means to trust their ship, their systems, and each other. And they learned that courage is not about firing back. It is about staying calm when the sky itself is falling. As night fell again, the Truman sailed on, its massive hull cutting through dark waters. Jets continued their patrols. Radar screens kept sweeping the horizon. The ship remained on station, watchful, silent, and ready. Because that's what the U.S. Navy does. It stands the watch so the world can sleep. When the missiles came at 4 a.m., the world held its breath. But the U.S. Navy did what it has always done. It stood its ground. If you believe in the courage of those who defend the seas like this video, subscribe and stay tuned for more real stories of power, precision, and duty at sea.